Well, I can't believe it's 2025 already. It's the time when many of us make New Year's resolutions, but too often they tend to be short-lived. So is there a secret to keeping these resolutions? Joining me from Lethbridge to chat about it is Kelly Stickel. He is the lead pastor of Parallel Church. Happy New Year, Pastor Kelly. Great to have you with us again.
Yeah, happy New Year to you as well. It's so good to be with you and excited for what the next year's going to hold.
Oh, that's so positive. Okay, so this is a topic I feel that's been done to death, but is making New Year's resolutions a good idea considering how often they tend to fail?
It's amazing. I actually did a poll at our services last week, and asked how many people put up a hand, did a New Year's resolution, and there was only a handful of people
Right?
that either admitted it or said that they did New Year's resolution. So I think a lot of people, as we get older, we just stopped doing the resolutions because they haven't worked in the past. But I think regardless of whether we admit it or not, I think something amazing happens at the turn of a calendar. All of us, look ahead into the new year, reflect back on the past year, whether we do it officially or not, and whether we are willing to admit it or not. I think all of us are saying, yeah, I want to get better at my health. I want to get better and, our financially, relationally. I think all of us just kind of look ahead and saying, I want this year to be better in this way. So whether we admit it or not, I
Right?
think we all
Yeah, it's almost like a
can.
reset button, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm with you. I'm one who stopped making resolutions years ago. I don't remember the last time I did, but some people do, and sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're fun, sometimes they're just really serious. And so, we'll have the typical resolutions like losing weight, quitting smoking, and those are always good, right? But are there any key areas that you would see as being more important than others in making New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I would say what I find really important, what I talk to our congregation about, and anybody that will listen, I think it's very important to begin working internally on ourselves. And here's
Hmm.
why. The reason why we stopped doing New Year's resolutions is because we typically resolve to change a behavior or to get better at a behavior. And so then we go to work on that behavior. If we want to work on our health, we go to work and say, I'm going to start working out. So we'll begin working out or we'll go to the gym. I love how packed the gyms get in the first 3 weeks of January. Everyone's got the same resolution, apparently. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, the gym begins to clear out and people stop doing that. And the
Yeah,
reason why
that's when I
people
start going.
exactly. Um, the reason why people, fall off on the resolutions is because they typically focus on behavior modification. They will modify a behavior and do that. It doesn't work. The better way to do that is heart change is way more effective than behavior modification. So we have to work on ourselves internally first before we could ever get the results to stick externally. And I liken it to this. The analogy I use is that airplanes have automatic pilots, and an automatic pilot is has a predetermined destination that a pilot can push the button and it'll go there. And our subconscious and our heart or our inner selves, Solomon said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Basically, he's referring to that inner self, that heart. That's our automatic pilot. And behavior modification, and a pilot can take the controls for a while and steer the airplane on it as long as he's got the controls, steer the airplane to a different destination. But the moment that he lets go of the controls, it ends up coming back to the preset automatic pilot, no matter how far he steered it. And that's what behavior modification does. We can take control for a while, but eventually we're going to relax, we're going to let go, and it's going to come back to our predetermined, preset automatic pilot, which is our inner selves. And so I think the most important thing to begin working on in a new year is saying, I'm going to work on my heart, I'm going to work on my heart change, and I'm going to work on myself spiritually before I manifest anything else physically. And so I think that's the place to start, and that's where to focus. And I think that's probably by far the most important place in
Yeah.
order to make the resolution stick.
Yeah, instead of trying to modify the behavior, like you were saying. And do you think that's why so many people fail I mean, because like you said, that autopilot kind of just steers you back to where you were before.
Yeah, I think intuitively we all know that we need to better at and whatever that we want to we want to get better in our health. Let's just work on that. So we know we should eat better. We know we should work out, and we might be able to modify those behaviors for a season, but we all know that all of that takes an enormous amount of discipline. And the truth is, the discipline isn't sustainable until we start to view ourselves differently from the inside out. That's the only way that we can really have sustainable change, is if we can reprogram how we see ourselves or how we think about ourselves in order to maintain those disciplines. That it's, and science is showing this, neuroscience is showing this on massive ways, that if you can change your internal perspective about yourself, it will automatically manifest itself into behavior. Your behaviors will now modify to fit your self image. And so it's important, I think, really important to reprogram that heart, and again that will manifest itself in allowing us to be disciplined for longer.
No, that makes sense. Of course, we've seen stats indicating that people are way more likely to make improvements if the person takes the time to write out their New Year's resolution goals. So, is there something to this, that the person somehow takes it a bit more seriously?
Absolutely. I read a book years ago by Brian Tracy called Goals. And in that book, he talked about scientific evidence of the difference in writing out, and this is not asking Chat GPT or or typing out. This is actually physically writing. If you write out your goals, he said the likelihood is, for it to stick is way more. I can't remember what the percentage was, but it was way off the charts, way more effective. And I was like, really? And then he challenged, he said, hey, I want you to do something for 30 days. And in the book, he challenged us, and I actually did it. And he says, I want you to write out day one 10 goals that you have for yourself. So goals, think about your health, think about your relationships, think about your finances, think about your career, think about, personal growth, whatever. Write out 10 goals that you'd like to accomplish. On day one, do that. On day two, take a journal, flip the page. Don't look at the 10 that you wrote up before. Write out 10 goals again. And I was like, well, I'm not going to remember the 10 that I wrote yesterday. And he said, that's the point. You will remember probably the top 3 or 4 most important to you, and you can write those out. But if you do that every single day without reflecting back on that, by the time it gets to day 30, you've locked in what your goals are and you're writing them out. So I did that. I took a journal. Actually, I think that journal's actually right behind me. But I took a journal and wrote out that, for 30 days, did as exactly as he instructed, and then kind of forgot about it. And I was going through a journal about a year later, and I was like, pulled it out. I was like, hey, I wonder what I wrote down. And I wrote down, and I was shocked that all 10 of those goals were accomplished in that year.
Uh-uh.
Shocked. I had,
Wow.
and it blew me away. And I was like, okay. And from that point on, um, I, 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 I'm a strong advocate of
Yeah. And it
writing
sounds
them
like
down,
don't just write it out once, write it out 30 times. Get that
write it out
really,
30 times.
get that
Yeah.
down pat in there. And I would imagine that it would be kind of funny to see how maybe like flipping through the days, because you were saying it might change a little bit from each day. And then by the end of
Yeah, it
it,
was amazing
the
because
ones
the
that are
first,
really important would have stuck to the end, to the 30-day
and
mark, right?
yeah, and I think that's probably the key to the whole process of doing it that way, is that as time went on, the first day, and I did go back and look at that, and I was like, yeah, my top 3 were the same virtually from day 1 to day 30. But in day 2, there were 7 that were new and quite different. And then as it went on, as it got to day 30, then all 10 for the last 3, 4, 5 days were exactly the same. They were in there. But what that did, I think, is deposit that into my heart. And then without even realizing it, by writing out, you're depositing, you're programming your automatic pilot. And then the automatic pilot goes to work, and you begin, and it was as specific the goals that were as specific and he says to do this, but he says instead of saying I want to, he says I will. And I did a health goal. I said I will weigh this by then and have this date. And I went back and looked at it, and I weighed the exact weight by the exact date I had written out, and I hadn't even thought about that. And I went, "Oh my goodness!" I was like, "How did that happen?" Um, and I think it's the reprogramming of the.
Hopefully, there's a lot of people at home writing this down right now.
Yeah. Well,
No,
try
that's
it. Go get the book.
fantastic.
Goals is a phenomenal book, but yeah,
Oh, that's amazing. Hopefully you're not an anomaly there with that weight mark thing. But do you think, Pastor Kelly, that it makes a difference if you have some accountability partners to do the resolution alongside of you rather than doing it on your own?
yeah, without question. There's a reason why God told us not to forsake gathering together, is that we are better together without question. We're social beings. We are connected. Our the accountability that we have, the peer to peer relationship that we have, is vital. God created us this way. We are meant to be social beings in this way, and so without question, it's something there's something that happens when I confess to somebody else the goal that I have or the desire that I have. And the moment I do that without even asking for accountability, I automatically feel accountable. And then when I wake up in the morning and don't feel like going for a run or feel like going to the gym, I remember, wait a second, I told somebody and they're probably going to ask me. And sometimes that's the driving factor of going, no, I got to do this because I'm now accountable whether I ask for it or not. I'm now accountable to somebody else. So I do really think that, you know, to help us stay on track, invaluable to have somebody to share with and to hold accountable.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. What if you fall off the wagon, so to speak? Should a person make a backup plan for when the plan fails? Should they feel bad about it, critical of themselves? What's a good way to kind of avoid all that?
Each personality is a little bit different in how we respond to that. But I think um, ultimately, I think what it's important is the truth is, and let's just be honest, all of us fall off the wagon. All of us have days where we failed the workout plan or didn't go work out. All of us have days that we went off the diet. All of us have days where we spent money we shouldn't have. All of us have regrets. That's part of being human nature. I think what's important is where we fix our gaze. The Bible talks about fix your eyes on heaven, fix your eyes on the goal, set your I set my Paul said I set my mark. And I think when we set our mark on the ultimate goal, I we can look past the little bumps in the road that are there because ultimately we're still on track. We're still going to get on our goal. When we focus too much on the immediate and where we failed and what we failed in, or where we focus too much on today and we miss the goal for the year, we can get too distracted, and then we feel like a failure. And when we feel like a failure, that's now programming into our heart. And we may there's a difference between having failed than being a failure. And if we see ourselves as a failure, we are most likely to give up and quit. If we see like I failed, no, I'm going to double down. I'm going to work on that. I'm not going to miss 2 days in a row. I'm not going to miss 2 weeks in a row. I got to get back on track. And if we do that, because my ultimate goal is this, then we will, I think, inevitably get there if we fix our gaze on the ultimate goal rather than just on the day to day.
Yeah, and do you think that maybe we tend to make too many goals, or we set goals that are maybe unreasonable? Like, I mean, we all have good intentions going into those New Year's resolution, but are we, setting us up for fail? How do we avoid that?
Yeah, I think there's and I tell my staff this all the time, there's no such thing as an unrealistic goal. There's the only thing that changes the unrealistic deadline. So, we can set goals and saying that was too much. Uh, we are going to lose this much weight. Well, and the truth is, and we're going to weigh that by this date. Well, often if we don't hit that mark, then was that an unrealistic goal or was that an unrealistic deadline? If I say I'm going to lose, 40 pounds in a month, That's probably an unrealistic deadline rather than an unrealistic goal, at least an unhealthy one.
Big
But
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
so like don't do that. That's not gonna be good. So oftentimes we look at this and going, okay, well, it's not an unrealistic goal, and I wasn't wrong in setting the goal. Maybe I just was not, and I think it takes time for us to learn how to set realistic deadlines and be realistic in that. I think I was like, so sometimes I'm saying, okay, if I'm gonna lose 40 pounds and I didn't do it in a month, hopefully I didn't, then I'm going, well, if I move the date, I can still have the same goal. And if I can change that date and when I want that to accomplish and what's more realistic. And as we learn, and it's really helped me to go, because I'm very optimistic. I like to set goals, and I missed a bunch of them going, I'm a terrible goal setter. No, I'm a terrible date setter. I want to get more realistic in the dates and saying, okay, by when, and then I can learn. Then I don't feel like the failure. Then I'm going, oh, I've learned from that. I can set a more realistic
Yeah,
boundary.
yeah, great advice there, Pastor Kelly. We're out of time, but thanks so much for being with us and Happy New Year to you. All the best in 2025.
Same to you. Thanks so much for having me. Great talking with you.